Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3. I am here in lovely Orlando, Florida at EA Sports, where I got to play the game. That's right. EA Sports College Football 2026, EA Sports College Football 26 is as awesome as you'd imagine. I got a chance to play it on Thursday and spent a while talking about that. We put out a video on Thursday afternoon explaining what's new, what to expect when you play. So we're going to show you that. And if you've already watched, that's okay. I don't mind if you fast forward a little bit, but we wanted to make sure it was in the show so the folks in the podcast feed got a chance to hear about the game as well, because it's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to hear me and Ari talk about it a lot over the next few weeks and months, because it is something that kind of begins to dominate our lives in the summer. Ari loves to play this game. You may wind up playing against him late one night. I, of course, end up playing my son and his friends, and we just have a blast with it. So this is one of the more highly anticipated college football events, I guess, annually now. It came back last year, and it had been so long that you forgot how exciting it was when it came back around every year like it did when I was in college and as a young adult. So now I get to experience that every year. I get to do it with my son, which is a whole lot of fun. Get to do it with Ari, who's kind of like my other son. So it's going to be a whole lot of fun as we dig into this game over the next month, and then we all get it and we get to start playing it in full. So we're going to talk about that. And then also, it's a mailbag show. We'll teleport myself back to Destin, where we recorded some answers to some really, really good questions from you guys. And the first question, I'll give you a little tease, is, hey, you guys keep talking about how great DJ Lagway is. How come you're not giving Julian Sayin at Ohio State the same benefit of the doubt? Fantastic question. So let's talk video game, and then let's come back with your excellent questions. Greetings from EA Sports in Orlando, Florida, where, yes, I have played the game. Not as mind-blowing, earth-shattering as last year when it was the first time I'd gotten to play the game in a long, long time, because the game had gone away for 11 years. But EA Sports College Football 26, lots of improvements over the one that brought the game back. And the one that brought the game back was pretty awesome, but a lot more with this one. Some stuff that we've been asking for, some stuff that we didn't even know we wanted. But I'm going to take you through some of the things that I saw playing the game today. Had a lot of fun conversations with the folks who designed the game. And trust me, we're barely scratching the surface with what these guys can do. This is going to be a lot of fun over the next few years, but let's get to what we're going to get in the game in July when it ships. And I think I'll go back to last year. When I first got to play the game last year, same event, first thing I did, I booked a game at Lane Stadium. I wanted to see in Blacksburg what happens when the Hokies come out of the tunnel, where they're going to play Enter Sandman. They didn't. And I remember talking to Ben Howmiller, who's the principal designer of the game, and I said, what, no Enter Sandman? He's like, licensing a Metallica song is expensive, Andy. We're not sure exactly how many of these things we can do in terms of getting the songs. So they had Mo Bamba, they had Sandstorm. But this time, first chance I got, Lane Stadium, I heard the guitars. I heard James Hetfield. You hear the crowd singing it as the Hokies are in the tunnel. It's exactly what you'd hope it would be. Exactly what you'd hope it would be. And it's not the only thing that's new in terms of just the immersive, you're at the game factor, which I think is probably the most impressive thing about this game, is it makes you feel like you're actually at the game. So, as you know, if you watch the show, I grew up a South Carolina fan. My first in-person college football game was at Williams-Brice Stadium. So very partial to the South Carolina band playing the theme from 2001 as the Gamecocks take the field. Well, last year, they just played Sandstorm. And obviously, we know that the Gamecocks love Sandstorm, but that's not how they take the field. This year, dun, 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 and the Gamecocks come out. And then as you're about to kick off, Sandstorm kicks in. It is amazing. And they've just got more of those little touches. For example, if you're playing a game at the Big House, between the third and fourth quarters, they're playing Mr. Brightside. And by the end of it, it's just the crowd singing Mr. Brightside. And it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. It makes you feel like you're there. And it's one of those things that really just hits you as a college football fan, that the people who make this game love it as much as we do. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that they've been trying to do that. And really, when you dig down deep into this, I was talking to Anthony, who does the playbooks for the game, and he's telling me about all the different Zoom calls he's been on with defensive coordinators about how they resolve conflicts, when they're playing against RPOs. And this is stuff that I don't even know that 90% of the people playing the game are going to notice. They're maybe not notice the run fits and how the defensive linemen interact with the offensive linemen, how the linebackers fill certain gaps. But they've taken a lot of time to do this. There's a formation that Penn State runs, that gate formation where they bring the left guard and the left tackle out wide. They had to change their rules for it because the game sees players out wide and thinks, oh, those are eligible receivers. But then they had to put in the eligible number designation outside the tackle box so that those guys wouldn't run routes. And they would do exactly what Penn State's offensive linemen do in that situation. I'll just say I did Drew Aller a little dirty while I was playing as Penn State. We were at Ole Miss, and I might have run every play out of that gate formation. I don't think the Rebels were fooled. So the 2 interceptions Drew Aller threw, not on him, totally on me. Virtual Drew Aller, I'm sorry. But that's the kind of cool stuff that you can expect this year. And also, they got coaches in the game this year. That's one thing that was missing. Remember, I talked to Lane Kiffin last year, and he said, I'd love to be in the game. I would do it for free. It'd be great for recruiting. Well, Lane Kiffin is in the game this year. Now, I'm not sure it's exactly Lane Kiffin. I think Lane, I just saw Lane this week in Destin. He's a little sunburned. He's been fishing. But I don't know that they quite captured Lane perfectly. But it is Lane. Now, coaches they did capture perfectly. Steve Sarkisian looks identical to the real Steve Sarkisian. James Franklin at Penn State, identical to the real James Franklin. Manny Diaz at Duke, excellent likeness. But here's the thing. It's not just head coaches. And they're not all in the game. I did go to North Carolina to see if Bill Belichick was in there. Did not see him. Now, I don't know if all of them are in there yet, but did not see Bill Belichick. But it's not just coaches. They have over 300 coaches in this game, so it's not all the head coaches only. They also have coordinators. Like, for example, if you're playing as Penn State, Andy Kotelnicki is your offensive coordinator, Jim Knowles is your defensive coordinator. And where you see this more is in dynasty mode, where you can either make your own coach, you can make yourself the coach, but you could also say, I'm going to be James Franklin. Or you could say, I'm going to start as Andy Kotelnicki, the offensive coordinator at Penn State, and see where your career goes from there. I think that was one of the most fun things is they showed us a little bit of what it's going to look like. And, you can see these coaches that kind of move around and imagine where guys would go. There's one instance where Jason Candle winds up the Iowa coach, the Toledo coach, Jason Candle. Now, I think actually if Kirk Ferentz retired this year, Jason Candle would be a perfect replacement for Kirk Ferentz. So it's a lot of fun to imagine this stuff, and you can really put yourself in the world. They've tried really hard to make a lot of those modes customizable, but we'll do a lot more on the different modes, on the road to glory, on the dynasty mode, on the road. Those are going to be as the time between now and the game release goes on. We're gonna get into that in June, because right now I know you probably, what's it like to play the game? So what's the actual gameplay itself when you're on the sticks, you're playing against somebody else. It's a lot of fun still. It's a lot of fun. There are a couple changes that they brought in. I actually think it's quite a bit easier to play defense now. They brought in the physics-based tackling that they introduced for Madden last year, which I think is better than last year's version of the college football game, and obviously much better than the early versions of the college football game where the defenders really could just go chase the ball. The tackling was not necessarily representative of what it's like in real life. I think it's a lot more representative of real life now. They try to get the players essentially to obey the laws of physics. So if you hit a guy hard up top, then you might bounce off him. If you hit him, in the midsection, you might wrap up and drive him down. Also, conversely, when you're running the ball, you can run through tackles a little better now. And it feels like that physics-based tackling kind of cuts both ways. But I did feel more in control when I was on defense trying to get a guy on the ground. Another thing they've done, which is for the people like me who, you have to decide who you want to control when you're playing on defense. A lot of people will take somebody in the secondary. A lot of people take a linebacker. I've always been someone who will take an edge rusher or a D tackle. So they have a defensive lineman steering function now where you can use that left stick if you're a defensive lineman and you're engaged with an offensive lineman. Now, you got to be good enough to do it as the defensive lineman. It's not necessarily good enough as the player, but you need to have a very good defensive lineman. Like when I was playing as Mateo Uiagalelei from Oregon, it was much easier than when I was playing as someone who isn't necessarily as highly rated. And you can kind of steer the offensive lineman the way you want him to go, not just in a pass rush situation, but also in the run game. So it's a lot more fun when you're a guy who likes to play as a defensive lineman. So I thought that was fantastic. I thought that was a great addition to the game. I know you want ratings for players. They're not finalized yet, so I don't want to give you ratings that might not wind up being the actual rating when they come out. But I will tell you about a few guys because I played as some of these guys, wound up playing against some of these guys. Took Arch Manning to Georgia. Took Arch Manning, the Texas Longhorns, to Sanford Stadium, played between the hedges. And they did make Arch Manning pretty good. And they gave him some star attributes. But he is not immune to stadium pulse. It's not the same as when you say bring a freshman like Bryce Underwood in there, but he's still not immune to it. So Georgia, obviously one of the toughest places to play in the country, you're getting very squiggly lines when you look at the routes. You're getting situations where you might not see what buttons correspond to what route. You were getting calling audibles and the question mark and nobody heard you. You're getting all of that when you're on the road with a quarterback who's a little bit less experienced. Now, also played as Cade Klubnik from Clemson. They've made Cade Klubnik very aware, very smart, and that's probably accurate for a guy who is a senior, who is entering his third full year as the starter, who's played in a ton of tough environments and played in a ton of big games. That is what you'd expect. But he's a fun one to play as. Now, I will say, another guy I was very impressed by on Clemson, Purdue transfer Will Helt, the defensive end. Couple Purdue transfers just blew me away today. Now, we'll see if they wind up doing this in real life. But Ari and I have talked about them on Andy and Ari on 3 about what they can do on the actual football field. Their virtual versions are fantastic. So Will Helt, one of those guys where he was getting a great push. And then, of course, he's next to Peter Woods, who's one of the best interior defensive linemen in the country. And Peter Woods was just annihilating the Michigan offensive line when I had Clemson playing against Michigan in Death Valley. Of course, we got to see that incredible entrance where the Clemson players get off the bus. They go down the hill. You actually have Dabo leading them down the hill in this particular case because you didn't have that before. Now you have the coach. But that was a lot of fun. Bryce Underwood, I took him into 2 tough road environments. So I was playing as Clemson against another person who was playing as Michigan when Underwood was the QB on the road. He struggled a bit. They did not make it easy for him to succeed. But you could see they made him very athletic. And when he can get loose and when he has some time, he's got an arm. I also took Bryce Underwood. I played as Michigan, took them to the Horseshoe. I decided to make it snow. Script, Ohio in the snow is the first image you see. It's beautiful. And then that game was so much fun. I mentioned 2 Purdue transfers. I said Will Helt from Clemson. The other Purdue transfer I want to mention is Max Clare, the tight end who's at Ohio State now. Because, listen, I did okay with Bryce Underwood and company, and Michigan has a very good defense. But I was trying so hard to stop Jeremiah Smith, and Max Clare ate me alive. Now, we've heard good things about the actual Max Clare in Columbus. If he's half as good as virtual Max Clare, look out. Mackey Award winner might be in his future. So that was a lot of fun. It's great to kind of put the new face with the new team. Obviously, we like to play a game called Whose Team Is It Anyway on the show. Oftentimes, not very easy to remember where everybody is. I bet after a few weeks of playing the game, you'll have a very good memory of which guys wound up on which team. Speaking of transfers, Joey Aguilar, I'm sure you were wondering, Tennessee fans, the guy who went from Appalachian State to UCLA and then left UCLA when Nico Iamaleava went from Tennessee to UCLA, probably wondering who's starting for Tennessee? Is it Joey Aguilar? Is it Jake Merkslinger? I know his name's Merklinger, but I prefer to call him Merkslinger. It is Joey Aguilar. It is the transfer. And I took him to Tuscaloosa in the rain. And you know what? He held his own. He did all right. My defense struggled a bit against Ryan Williams and Isaiah Horton and company, but I thought Joey did okay considering the level of talent on Alabama's defense. So that was a lot of fun, getting to see all the new faces in the new places. But this game, I think you're going to find it very familiar if you played a lot of the game last year. The deeper modes, like I said, we'll get into those a little more. I think they've done some things that will make those easier to play and easier to play for longer, where if you're playing in Dynasty mode, they have some stuff that will make it where you're going to enjoy playing it longer rather than feel like you're getting into a kind of a monotonous pace, which sometimes you could in Dynasty mode. But just in terms of the little details, so I have to find this in my notes. It's fascinating exactly how much work was done on stuff that I honestly probably didn't even think about it. But, you had the memes of the fans because they'd have those cutaway shots of the fans, and there wouldn't be that many different fans. Well, they did an incredible job fixing that. So 1,700 new heads for the crowd and the cheerleaders, 200 new characters total. So there is a lot more variety in those shots. And I think that's something, if you played a ton of the game, you probably got so used to seeing it, and it became a little bit of a running joke. Now there's a lot more variety. And again, you have those little moments like when you're playing at Michigan between the third and the fourth quarters and Mr. Brightside kicks in. It's awesome. And I'm sure at a certain point you're going to have played it a bunch of times and you're like, okay, I want to go through this, but it's so cool. And they've got 136 FBS teams. Welcome Delaware, by the way. And the attention to detail is very, very good. And it's one of those things where they paid attention when fan bases said, hey, this isn't exactly how it looks. This is what it is. South Carolina, I mentioned, they didn't have the theme from 2001. That's a song that apparently they were telling me just came in. So they just got that into the game. But I remember last year they said, they've got the fans waving black towels, the fans wave white towels. Well, now they're waving white towels. And it's just that they are trying to make it feel like you are at that game. And so far they are doing it. And I think having the coaches helps too, because, in the NFL, the coach is not as big of a deal as the players. Every once in a while you have the iconic guys, Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, but it's not as big of a deal. In college, the coaches are the biggest characters in the game. And so to be able to see Sark sending Arch Manning onto the field, or to be able to see a cutaway shot of James Franklin on the sideline after the stupid offensive coordinator, who isn't real Andy Kotelnicki, but is actually Andy Staples, who's running the gate formation every play and not fooling Ole Miss, to see him frustrated because a couple interceptions, it's pretty awesome. It feels even more like the actual game. And so very impressed with the thought and the care that they put into it. Very excited to get a chance to play it for longer. It's one of the things when you only get to play it for a few hours, you're just jumping from stadium to stadium, trying to see, okay, I need to see what this guy plays like. I need to see what this stadium looks like. And I tried to get as many as I could in. On Monday's show, you'll hear from Ryan Williams, who's on the cover. Alabama receiver Ryan Williams. Had a funny situation in my Tennessee-Alabama game where I did deny Ryan Williams a touchdown catch, but mostly because I had him double covered and I tackled him in the end zone and they did not throw a flag. So I am very pleased with my defensive effort there because, I really got beat and should not have been able to do that. But, hey, sometimes things happen. Things happen in college football. Things happen in virtual college football. But I just can't wait to get the game and then to just – I'm one of those people who loves the entrances themselves. And those are changing a bit because there's a different big game entrance than a regular game entrance. And also, one of the things they've done, which I find fascinating, like when you're playing a season, the lighting will change based on – the actual time and place. So 6:00 in November in Eugene, Oregon looks different than 6:00 in November in Boston. And so you'll get sunsets at various times. And it's just, they showed us what some of the sunset animations look like. Just awesome. Can't wait to see the Rose Bowl, third quarter of the Rose Bowl. Very, very excited to see that. This is the stuff that we nerd out about. And this is the stuff that the people who make the game also nerd out about. And I'm glad they do. I'm glad they do. So cannot wait to see the full version of the game. Cannot wait to see what everybody's rated. This is going to be another fun summer because, look, we still have a while till the actual games start. It is not until late August that we're going to get that week 0 Farmageddon game in Dublin. By the way, they do not have Aviva Stadium in Dublin yet. One of the few stadiums they don't have. They have almost everything else. They did not recreate the lacrosse stadium that Northwestern's been using on Lake Michigan. They're going to put new Ryan Field into the game next year. It's still old Ryan Field for now. But they've loaded this thing down. Loaded it down. So July, we're going to get about a month and a half solid of playing this game before the actual games come to help us end our national nightmare of the offseason. But this game is going to get us to the finish line because I guarantee you we're all going to be playing it a bunch. We're going to be talking about it a bunch. My co-host Ari Wasserman, when you click on the game one night and you put your headset on, the voice coming on the other end, it very well may be Ari. Could be me. Could be my son. Probably I'm not going to be on the headset because I'll be getting my ass kicked by my son. That's the problem when you're an old man and you have a 15-year-old who plays video games constantly. But I am going to be better this time. I'm going to master that gate formation at Penn State. I'm not going to run it every play anymore. I will sprinkle it in sparingly, only when I need to fool the defense. But hey, I had to try today because it's there, along with just about everything else in college football, including coaches now. We love when you guys drive the show. And this question from Ty, and he asked it to pretty much everybody. He asked it to the folks at Cover 3. He asked it to Josh Pate. He asked it to us. And I actually want to hear everybody's answer to this. Like I'm going to tune into all their shows and see if they answered Ty's question, because this is a really, really good one. You ready? Here we go. I don't understand how everyone in college football is so confident in DJ Lagway while also being questionable on Julian Sayin. Sayin was rated equally as high, much better surroundings, better weapons, better coaching. Ari. It is true. DJ Lagway and Julian Sayin were both very highly rated quarterbacks in the class of 2024. The difference is Julian Sayin was behind Will Howard all last year and is now getting the chance to win the starting job. DJ Lagway was probably the best quarterback on the roster the entire time, but Graham Mertz was starting initially. He tore up his knee against Tennessee, and DJ Lagway was forced into the starting job. So we now have a better idea of who DJ Lagway is. But I will ask you this, and I'm probably the guiltiest person of anyone on this front. So I'll just ask it of you about me. Am I allowing what Lagway did against LSU and Ole Miss to do too much lifting? Should I be more skeptical?
So I appreciate the spirit of the question. And I think there's a very high likelihood that Julian Sayin will be a very good, productive quarterback, if not a great one. My belief, and I believe that your belief in DJ Lagway extends past his recruiting profile and situation and into the fact that he's a freak and that we've been able to see it with our eyes.
And I've seen it. I've seen it against good teams at the end of a season.
So I think that the thing that is interesting, and I find that this question also reminds me, Andy, of the run-ins that I had with people about Arch Manning a month ago, of your blind belief in situation, coaching, recruiting rankings, and measurables, and your actual what you've seen, what's tangible, and what you know about a person as a college football player. There's a divide there. And the reason why DJ Lagway has been the number one quarterback on my lists than Arch Manning. People were mad that Arch Manning was in the top 10 at all, let alone, DJ Lagway is number one because I watched him play and I know for a fact that the man is a freak of nature. I know that. So it's not that have you seen the Family Guy cutaway where he is, getting scanned by somebody and they're like, you can have this boat or you can have this mystery box. And you can have anything in the. And he goes, I want the box. He goes, anything could be in this box. It could even be a boat. And he goes, box. And it was just like a $15 gift card to a nail salon in there. It's that what are you going to pick here? Are you picking the mystery box or are you picking the boat? DJ Lagway's the boat here. So I'm just going to pick the boat.
So I know you're using a Family Guy reference. So you're basically calling Julian Sayin Schrodinger's quarterback. We don't know. We don't know if he's going to be good or not until we see him.
I think that the Vegas odds of him being a very good quarterback are really stacked in that favor. I think that Julian Sayin will likely be a very good quarterback, if not maybe a Heisman finalist. It happens all the time at Ohio State because of the coaching, because of who they recruit and how good they are when they come in and who they're throwing to. There's no question about it. But also too, when you're ranking quarterbacks, a lot of my Arch Manning ranking was blind faith because of Ryan Wingo and those guys. And maybe it's making me feel like I underranked Julian Sayin, which is probably
I was going to say Jeremiah Smith should provide the most blind faith of anybody in the world. And I think that's why I like Ty's question so much.
But I also think too, though, that maybe the question should be phrased, I don't think that DJ Lagway should be a part of the question. I think it should be, are we not talking enough about Julian Sayin? Because I think I'm willing to have that conversation. But if you're asking me or to explain, because he said, I don't understand how everyone in college football is so confident in DJ Lagway, it's because everybody in college football has eyes. The guy is going to be he's just a physical freak that has a beautiful arm and has produced in big games against big time SEC opponents. Now, the one thing that scares the shit out of me when it comes to DJ Lagway is his injury history. The man has been beaten up quite a bit. And I don't know if that's a result of just bad luck or bad offensive line play, but their offensive line was pretty good. I don't know. I just don't want him to get hurt again because that's the one thing that can derail somebody this talented. I think that DJ.
Well, Lagway he missed 3 months of throwing this spring.
Yeah, but
because of a shoulder injury that dated back to last year.
But I feel like he's already unequivocally proven that when healthy, he has it. I don't know that there's much debate. Are there people out there are people out there why is DJ Lagway getting so much pub? And I think
if you didn't watch those two games all the way through, or you didn't watch him before he got hurt against Georgia, maybe you don't understand. If you watch him, you'll understand.
There are a lot of people who do form opinions without watching as much football as we do. We watch all the games. I'm watching everything. I just don't go watch his highlights if you want. I don't know what to tell you, but my belief system has always been this. A great player, 9 times out of 10, the truly special, great, one-of-a-kind type players reveal themselves very early. Mm-hmm. And I think that you got that with Jeremiah Smith. You obviously got that with Ryan Williams. You get that a lot with really great players. Trevor Lawrence won a national title his freshman year. The great players actually do it. I think that DJ Lagway has
Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels are kind of the exceptions to the rule. Usually when somebody's that good, you know it immediately. Now, you just brought up a name, though, of guys who showed their greatness immediately that ties into Julian Sayin. Jeremiah Smith, undoubtedly the best receiver in college football, maybe the best receiver in college football in a long, long time. Like, the only name I actually hear him compared to that even makes sense is Larry Fitzgerald. And it's pretty lofty, but I don't feel like it's overblown. I think Jeremiah Smith is potentially better than Larry Fitzgerald in college.
Here's my straight-faced expectation for Jeremiah Smith. I believe that when his NFL career is over with, he will be the greatest receiver to have ever played. Like, that's where I'm at with him. So, like, I don't know, like, what you like. I mean, I know Calvin Johnson.
I think being better than Calvin Johnson and Jerry Rice, there's a long way to go for that.
Yeah,
but he has all the tools.
He has all the tools. My expectation, based on what I know about him and his physical measurables and his production so far, is that he should do that. Like, that's what I think of him. So,
but Julian Sayin gets to throw to that guy. How much does the fact that Julian Sayin gets to throw to that guy weigh into this? I think it should weigh a lot. And I think Ty makes a great point there, that he gets to throw to not just Jeremiah Smith, but also Cornell Tate, also Max Clare, who we mentioned the other day, coming from Purdue as a tight end.
Brandon, and they've got a lot of really good players.
Julian Sayin's really set up to succeed here.
Can I make one final point, though, about this?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I've actually been thinking about this. Has Ohio State named a starting job yet? A starting quarterback yet?
No, theoretically, it could not be Julian Sayin. Okay. It could be Lincoln Keenholz. So,
here's the deal. Like, it's going to be Julian Sayin. Okay, I've been around enough of these fake battles to know when it's a fake one and when it's a real one. There was a real one I covered. It was JT Barrett and Cardale Jones. That was a real one, and it turned out to be an absolute dumpster fire. But this is a fake one. Okay, and it will be Julian Sayin at the end of the road. But my question to you is that if you believe that this is a real one, because a lot of people do, people go into these off seasons, but some people do. People listening to the show might call me an idiot for thinking that. Is that if the coach of Ohio State isn't confident enough in what he has in Julian Sayin to name him the starter on May 29th, the day that we're recording this, then what is it that you're expecting us to do when we are comparing him directly to a quarterback who's already shown physical freak nature ability while also being the starting quarterback and having played his true freshman year? Like, I think there's a big distinction between those two things. So until the coach comes out, the person who sees him every day and evaluates him and says, this is our guy, then what do you want from us? Like, that's the thing for me.
That's true. But I mean, I understand the politics that Ryan Day is dealing with and the dynamics of the transfer portal, and you want to make sure everybody stays, and you want to make sure you have a backup. Yeah.
He's dealing with politics, but like, that's the thing is, like, you know, if you think that Julian Sayin should be held in the same regard as DJ Lagway, then tell your coach. Like, it's nothing to do with me. He's not even the starter yet. And it will be fascinating to watch, because it's funny because in a lot of places you could say, oh, the better weapons argument. Are you sure about that? Are you sure that Dallas Wilson's not going to be? No. We're sure Jeremiah Smith's a better weapon than everybody else has. So we're sure about that. Like, Ohio State is definitively the best, most equipped offense in terms of personnel this year and skill talent, right? Like, there's no debate about that. Yeah. So I'm not there of like, oh, well, we'll see how that goes.
I am excited to see DJ Lagway throwing to Dallas Wilson, J. Michael Sturdivant, Eugene Wilson. Like, I am excited about that
without them. Like, now it's like,
yeah, he did it. He did it with Kamir DK and Elijah Badger, who were good, and like DK got drafted probably a little higher than I thought he would. But the question is, like, if is Dallas Wilson the kind of freak who blows up the way Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams did last year as true freshmen, or is he more like a Cam Coleman where it's a little bit slower, or Ryan Wingo where it's a little bit slower burn?
Cam Coleman,
maybe the sophomore
last year. Let's hope for Cam Coleman.
Cam Coleman would, but I think you would argue that Cam Coleman into the season very different than Cam Coleman beginning of the season. Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith were good.
No, I just mean, like, if they can add Cam Coleman to their repertoire, they'd be.
They'd be in good shape. Yeah, they would be in good shape. So I'm excited about this because I think the quarterback arguments in a year after one where we didn't really have a dominant quarterback, like, again, I am glad Travis Hunter won the Heisman because I think it was great to recognize something that we're probably never going to see again. But if there'd been a dominant quarterback, that quarterback would have won the Heisman. This is about to be a year where there's going to be a bunch of dominant quarterbacks, and it's going to be so much fun to watch.
I'm with you. I'm excited about it. But I think it's a good question, but I think you're also you're also asking it wrong. Just why hasn't
Ryan Day said this is the guy if he's that?
Why isn't Julian Sayin getting as much pub as DJ Lagway? I think it's very evident why.
But I'll give Ryan Day some grace on that because again,
I'm not coming down on Ryan Day. I'm shielding us. It's like, I'm just saying they're going to have their process.
Oh, it's okay. People can call us idiots. It's fine.
No. The question is, why are we not talking about Julian Sayin as much? And the answer is we haven't seen him and he isn't the starter yet.
Yeah. It's the same. I don't feel like we're talking about Bryce Underwood all that much either, even though we're pretty sure he's going to be the starter because I don't know that Mikey Keene's going to be ready for the start of the season. So there's a few guys who are going to be first-year starters. We just had the long conversation about Alabama and the quarterback situation on Wednesday's show, and we don't know who that's going to be. Is it going to be Ty Simpson? Is it going to be Keelan Russell? Is it going to be Ty Simpson who then gives way to Keelan Russell? Like, we don't know. And that's the part of this where we can think we know, but until they tell us, like, Notre Dame, CJ Carr versus Kenny Minchie right now. We know that Steve Angeli left, but they didn't. Like, Marcus Freeman didn't suddenly name a starter all of a sudden.
Yeah. And also too, I'm a sucker for just pure bona fide measurables. And like DJ Lagway can like curl a car with his forearm if he wanted to, I think. So that helps.
Yeah, he's a big dude. So and all of this is going to be fun. That's the best part of this is people can argue, and I love the my QB is better than your QB argument. And when the QBs are all very good, I think we're about to see a year of a bunch of very good QBs. And after a year of not a lot, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So
with you.
Move on to question 2. We'll stay in the Big Ten for this one. It's from Warner. Dear Andy and Ari, first time writing in, listen to you guys every day and appreciate what you do. I am an Oregon fan, and I was curious about 2 things. 1, how should last season be remembered? 13-0 and winning the Big Ten are huge accomplishments, but what long-term takeaway should the Rose Bowl drubbing have? Does it mean that Oregon is far away from the upper echelons of the sport, or was it simply ran into the wrong team at the wrong time? Oregon proved it can hang with elite teams like Penn State and Ohio State within the season, which simply makes the result more confusing to me. 2, going forward, what is Oregon's ceiling? I recognize both you and Ari are high on Dan Lanning, and the talent brought in year over year is encouraging, but I push back at the notion that it's simply luxury shopping in the portal. At key positions such as defensive tackle, Bear Alexander, Derek Harmon, and Jamari Caldwell, left and right tackle, Alex Harkey, Isaiah World, and Johnny Cornelius, and at quarterback, Bo Nix, Dylan Gabriel, and Dante Moore, the Ducks have relied on the transfer portal to fill these needs. Is this talent acquisition model sustainable, and ultimately, how does that affect long-term ceiling? Really thoughtful questions from Warner. Do you want let's tackle the first one first about how to remember last season, because I think you wrote a column coming out of the Rose Bowl that I thought summed it up really well.
Yeah, from Pasadena, and I think that the actual reality of how this season should be remembered, Andy, is with great pride. I think that this past season ended in a very bad way for you, Oregon fans, but I also think too that this season was the line in the sand in which Oregon kind of makes that transition from second tier to top tier. I don't know if you take that away, but that's what I take away. And the other thing is, and I've shared this opinion on the show quite a bit over the last 6 months. But my opinion is that the way that Ohio State was constructed and what they possessed on their roster last year is the last of a dying breed, and that Oregon, which ironically, as you mentioned in your question, beat them earlier in the season, ran into them when they were angry, when they were hungry, when they were hurt, and a team can go 2 ways in that realm, and that's give up and suck, or come together and try really, really hard to be great. And they ended up doing the latter. And Oregon, with a week off and, a tougher route in the playoff because of dysfunctional seating and all those stuff, just ran into the wrong place at the wrong time. Like, I think Oregon is going to be very good this year. I think that they will be a team that I conceivably believe could win a national title as soon as this year, if things come together for them. And I don't think there's a team in college football that will hold as stark of a talent advantage as Ohio State ended up having at the end of that year. And people will say, well, they beat them once, the talent advantage. And you're right, they did. Regular season games, especially ones on the road, can go out a little bit differently, where my personal belief is that when teams play in neutral sites and postseason games, it's a different environment. Like, teams are different in that environment, especially in a playoff environment. And I wouldn't be too like, oh, we're screwed or we're second tier as a result of that. I think we would have to acknowledge what they lost to. The second part of the question, I think, is really interesting in that like they have had to, get important players at key positions in the portal. But I don't believe that Oregon, from a high school recruiting situation, is in a position where they're ever going to feel like they're not recruiting up to snuff. And my two things are always, are you recruiting high schools well enough, which Oregon is unequivocally doing? And two, have you proven in the portal that if there is a need or a position of great value that you want, can you close? And Oregon has proven that. So when you look at their ceiling into the future, as the top tier teams like Ohio State, who have geographical advantages and historical advantages, come down to closer to here, and Oregon comes up to here, they're going to be on a more even playing field, both because Dan Lanning is a elite level talent evaluator and accumulator, and because he doesn't have to do it at the rate that he saw firsthand at Georgia anymore, because that doesn't exist. Fair. And that's how you debate. Like, I felt like I was like in the old school like debate scene.
I just blacked out for a second.
Like that, like Ace Ventura, when he gets there, and that's what I just did. But I feel like I did a good job. Andy, anything to add?
No, I think that was a great job, and I will expand on your answer to the first part. I think what Oregon did in the regular season last year was extraordinary, and I don't know if we're going to see anybody do that again for a while. I mean, maybe we're going to see a team in the Big Ten as currently constructed, or the SEC is currently constructed, go undefeated, go 13-0, win the conference championship. I don't think that's going to be very easy for anybody to do. I think what they did was pretty extraordinary. And so take pride in that. What happened in the playoff, you did run into a version of a team that you're probably not going to run into again in that situation. So I think if you can put together a team like Oregon had last year, going forward, they're not going to. Now, they might play a team they could lose to in the quarterfinals or the semifinals of the playoff, but that doesn't mean it would be like that. I think that team, that Ohio State team, is an anomaly.
The biggest difference is you will play teams you could lose to. You won't play teams that you cannot beat. And I think that's the distinction.
Right. And they were not going to beat them that day. Yeah.
Now, and the thing that I think will be interesting about how we review and look back at Ohio State's season from this past year is that they did lose to Oregon and they did lose to Michigan, and they were a 2-loss team in the regular season. And in previous iterations of the playoff, they would not have even made the postseason. But I think that they will be constantly shortchanged in the annals of history as a result of how good they were. Like, you will not, like, I think the Athletic ranked the best teams of the last, 20 years or whatever, like 1 through 50. And like, I think like the Ohio State team, as it was constructed on the field in the national championship game and on the way to it, would have been able to hold its own against 2020 Georgia and 2020 Alabama and 2019 Georgia and all those teams that were winning championships back then. They were constructed in a way this past year to compete with the superest of super teams from the 2014 to 21 era. And they will never be remembered that way because they didn't get it done in the regular season. And frankly, that's the way the sport probably should work, where you don't get to even go to the playoff. But Ohio State was able to be the beneficiary of the new season, the new rules, the new outline for how the playoff is champion is crowned and the playoff is fielded, and they took advantage of it. But, there have been a lot of great teams in Ohio State history specifically that have not done enough in the regular season to get to the point where this Ohio State team got a chance to redeem itself. So, but Oregon, I think, is looking at it like, well, we beat them and they lost to Michigan. What the hell happened? It's like, when you really take a step back and look at who got drafted off that team and what they were every bit as good as the super team era teams that won national titles back then, in my opinion.
As for the transfer portal thing, it is interesting. We've had this discussion relating to Oregon and to Miami, because I think both of those teams do a good job recruiting out of high school. And especially Miami does a really good job recruiting in the trenches, and obviously Oregon does too. But they are more than willing to go fill needs. I will push back on Dante Moore, because I do realize he is a transfer. He went to UCLA first. But am I wrong for looking at him almost as an Oregon recruit? Because he was committed to Oregon for most of his recruitment. He then flips to UCLA, spends that year there, but it's Chip Kelly's last year there. It's really weird. And then he goes to Oregon and by going to Oregon, you knew he was agreeing to sit behind Dylan Gabriel for a year. Like, I view him more as an Oregon recruit than I do as a transfer.
I mean, I guess if you view Jared Verse as a Florida State recruit, you kind of have to view Dante Moore as an Oregon recruit, right? Like, it's kind of like the same deal. If you are somebody who transfers in and has multiple years to develop in a program and then comes out and does really well, I don't think people really connect Dante Moore to the UCLA recruiting class. And frankly speaking, you're not going to find a lot of people who played as much as Dante Moore did as a true freshman who are willing to go transfer to a place where he knows going into it he's not playing. Like, that's not something that you see very often. And I think as a result of that, it was a mature decision and one that might pay off great dividends, because I am in no way, shape, or form writing this kid's ability off. And I actually thought he showed some great flashes during his time at UCLA. You put him with these weapons. He's going to be thrown to Evan Stewart. There aren't a lot of people who are covering that guy.
Jacorian Moore. Let's not forget,
Moore.
Talk about guys. We talked about true freshmen who blew up last year. This is a true freshman who blew up this year.
And everybody wanted more. So like that.
Yeah, everybody in the country.
So, yes, I wrote from Pasadena the day after Ohio State beat the crap out of them to hold your head high and be hopeful for the future. And I meant that. That's how I view it. And I think that their long-term ceiling is national championship. And I don't know that I would have said that in 2018. And I don't know if I would have said it in 14 when they went to the national title game. So, also the development part of it, because I've talked about this a bunch on the show. Like, I feel like how you develop players and what they are as a finished product when they leave you is a lot more telling than the input part of it. Josh Connerly was a guy that Dan Lanning recruited to Oregon out of high school, and he played left tackle at Oregon 3 years. He became a first-round draft pick. Let me ask you this. Is Derek Harmon a first-round draft pick if he just stays at Michigan State last year? Or did going to Oregon and getting coached by the staff at Oregon help make him a first-round draft pick? Because if you believe that did, and I do, then I don't think shopping in the portal at key positions is necessarily saying that you're not going to win a national title. I think that there will be times in every roster where there are holes and you got to fill them. And if you can fill them with guys who, even if they come for 1 year, you can make them a first rounder that 1 year. You know,
all right.
Too, how many teams have won the national championship in the last 5 years who had a quarterback who transferred in their career? And also, too, when you take Dante Moore, that is very, excuse me, tickle in my throat there. Very different than taking a 1 year rental. They took him as a recruit, any more than Julian Sayin from Ohio State is an Alabama transfer. Yeah,
but I think Isaiah World this year is probably viewing this as a 1 year situation, and then he goes to the draft. I think that's fine as long as it's not your entire way of being, and I don't think it is for Oregon.
Is I think that quarterbacks are transient and they always transfer, and it's hard to keep somebody. But the thing that would make me most comfortable as an Oregon fan or any fan of any big time team is if my coach has shown and illustrated an ability to consistently sign elite level quarterback prospects to bring into the program for at least 1 year, because relying on the quarterback transfer situation can get you into hot trouble. And I kind of feel like Florida State is like, I hate that Florida State is constantly the antithesis of what goes well with the portal, and you use like examples of what goes wrong, but they found themselves in a position where they absolutely needed to have a quarterback. They went and got one who wasn't very good, and it tanked their entire season.
And it was a disaster.
And they didn't have anybody that they recruited out of high school that they could have felt really comfortable with stepping in there. And I think that like, to me, it's like if the Nico Iamaleava, I don't know, I can't say his name. Situation.
The first time's always hard. Iamaleava. You gotta say it a few times.
First time, Iamaleava. Quarterbacks are going to be leaving suddenly more now than ever before. So you need to have people on your roster that you're comfortable with. And like, I feel like getting that guy is harder.
And Austin Novosad stayed, by the way. Yeah. Austin Novosad, who is a very highly rated quarterback recruit, he stayed. He's still there. So he's an option too.
I legitimately think that doesn't count. I think that they took a luxury item at a position that wasn't a need when they took him, and now they have him. Like that's accumulation of talent. It might not have been from high school, but there should be a distinction between 1 year rental and program guys that are going to be on your team for multiple years moving forward. And I think
and I'll be honest, if Bear Alexander winds up a star this year, then Dan Lanning might be the greatest coach in the world, because based on what we've seen in his career, he's sort of a grass is greener guy. Like, you saw him shut it down at USC because he wasn't getting the playing time he wanted. Like, if Dan Lanning can turn that guy into a star, then He can probably do it with anybody.
The grass is pretty green in Oregon, so we'll see. It rains a lot there.
That's just that, but it never rains at Autzen Stadium.
It never
All
rains
right,
in
next
California. I'll play that much right now. Isn't there a drought?
There's drought everywhere. All right. DEGH22 asks this. How can we seriously allow the absurdity that the SEC plays 8 and everyone plays 9? Literally half the league would have one more loss. Well, that's not necessarily true because that assumes you would win the non-conference game you're scheduling instead of the 9th conference game, but I'll allow it. Also, everybody else doesn't play 9. The ACC only plays 8 games as well in conference. 5 ACC teams must play Notre Dame as ordained by the conference. So for 5 teams, they have to play 9 conference games, but for the other 12, they only play 8.
Am I like off base for just not caring about this discussion at all?
You are not off base, but I get a sense from fans of Big 10 teams and fans of Big 12 teams that it's very important to them that the SEC play 9 conference games. Now, here's the thing, though. We talked about it on yesterday's show. We talked about the carrot and the stick. They've dangled the carrot in front of you. You can make them play 9 conference games. All you have to do is accept what they want for the college football playoff, and they will play 9 conference games. But I don't think that's the greatest deal for the Big 12. For the Big 10, I don't think it matters.
I actually just think it's funny because, like, if you ask Big 10 teams who are mad about this, would you trade schedules with the SEC? They would say no.
Right.
Like that. Like
would you trade even what we consider to be a difficult Big 10 schedule? If you said, okay, would you trade your difficult 9-game Big 10 schedule for Oklahoma's 8-game SEC schedule? Not a single one of them would trade.
I don't think it's stamped because Oklahoma is the poster child for like awful schedules. I'm sorry, people in Norman. It's going to be a long year probably, even if you are much improved, and I anticipate you will be. But like Florida has a pretty tough one.
Florida has a very tough schedule. Yeah,
tough one. They have an intersection with a bunch of teams. Not to the age.
They trade for Missouri's schedule or Texas's schedule, maybe.
I don't know. Throw Texas's schedule up there. They're playing Ohio State. That doesn't count, does it?
We're talking conference games. Only conference games.
Yeah,
they're at Georgia.
Yeah, I mean,
they're at Florida.
At Florida and at Georgia is probably as close of a 1-2 punch toughness combo. Like what Big 10 schedule features? I mean, I guess if you have a Big 10 schedule that has you on the road at Ohio State and Penn State, you might, I don't know, maybe Florida
or Oregon at Oregon, at Ohio State, at Oregon, at Penn State. That would be tough.
Yeah. This is the easiest one, though. This is the easiest draw that in the SEC that we can come up with.
I think Missouri has the easiest draw. I think Missouri's is a little bit easier.
Oh, it does.
Oh, it's not easy. I mean, South Carolina, Alabama, but they get those at home at least.
Yeah, they don't have LSU and Georgia on their schedule. But like also too, Ohio State and Penn State and Oregon playing a conference with 16 teams. Like it's harder to play. They're 18. Sorry, 18.
The Big 10 has 18.
18, sorry. And the SEC has 16, but I think the extra 2 makes it difficult to play 8-2 because you need to play more games against the vast number of teams. And does that make sense? Like the more teams you have, the more games you probably play. I don't know. The extra 2 there.
Listen, I'd be fine with the SEC playing 9. I've covered that debate within the league for 5 years now. And it's interesting because a lot of the people who were originally behind the 9-game one, because they wanted to sell more tickets, their home schedule sucked, and they wanted to sell tickets because they wanted teams that didn't come through very often to come through more often. And I understood that. But now they're saying, well, no, we're not going to 9 unless you give us the automatic bids, which the people in the Big 10 would be fine with too, because they want them too. If you're the ACC or the Big 12, you don't want to sign up for that, even if it makes the SEC go to 9 conference games. I don't know. That juice is not worth the squeeze. But it also may be that the SEC and the Big 10 are so much more powerful at this point that the ACC and Big 12 don't really have a choice but to capitulate.
Yeah. But I don't know that the SEC is off the hook in the sense that they play one less conference game, but I don't know if they're actually off the hook in terms of the actual schedule. Shane
Beamer and Destin this week talking about how, that they have to play Clemson every year. And that's non-negotiable. He said, somebody asked him, would you consider losing, dropping the Clemson game? He's like, no. It's like that's a non-negotiable non-starter. Like South Carolina will play Clemson. And he's like, so we view it as already having those 9 games. And like they also play Virginia Tech this year. So they'll play 10 games against teams from power conferences. And so you've got the 5 schools that have the ACC rival or is it 4? It's Kentucky, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida. Sorry. So those 4 that have the ACC rival, they kind of look at it like, okay, already got that. But I will say, like, Florida's athletic director, Scott Strickland, before all this was one of the people pushing the SEC to go to 9, and they weren't going to drop the Florida State game. Like, that was just going to be another game that they played. So I think in a lot of places, they're fine with 9. And you heard Brian Kelly say, we'd like to play Big Ten teams. I think the only way the Big Ten gets into any sort of organized scheduling alliance with the SEC, I mean, you might have teams just signing up for games with each other, but like an organized scheduling alliance where you have like a Big Ten SEC challenge, the only way that happens is if the SEC goes to 9 games.
Yeah. Not that fired up about it, Andy, to be honest.
I know. But it really, really angers a lot of people.
I think that,
and maybe I'm just too online. Maybe there's not anybody, who isn't very active on Twitter who cares.
You know what it is? Here's what it is. We just got done saying at the beginning of the show that the threats from the SEC to not play big time non-conference games is a made up talking point. And this is the actually talking point from the other side. So like, that's why it's like you have it's politics, man.
I think the SEC just kicked this around and was like, oh, we can use this as leverage. Because we were like, remember, Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, wants the SEC to go into 9 conference games. Like, has wanted that for a long time.
These things are true, though. They're both true. Yeah. The SEC plays a harder schedule traditionally. I don't know if that'll be the case in 10 years, but right now I'm comfortable saying traditionally, annually, year over year, the SEC plays a harder schedule. And the other thing is true is that they play 1 less game. So it's like they can both be true. And like you probably are somewhere just like right down the middle there, in my opinion. Like I don't ever see an SEC team make it to the end of the season as a 10-2 or an 11-1 team and go, well, they weren't tested. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's not like Indiana played an extra conference game last year and there's not a team in the SEC they would have traded schedules with a year ago. So like, it's just, it kind of all works out. And like, that's why I'm not that fired up about it, because I feel like if you're in the Big Ten, you might have to play an extra conference game, but you might actually get to play Northwestern and Rutgers along the way. And in the SEC, you might not play those teams, but you get 1 less game. Like it's the same thing to me.
All right. Here is a great question from Adam.
And I'm a Big Ten guy. Big Ten guy too.
That's right. Who will be the next national champion? Not from the SEC, not from the Big Ten, and not Notre Dame, Clemson, Florida State, or Miami. Or will there ever be a national champion not in this group?
Hold on. Let me just try to visualize this. Who will be the next national champion from not SEC and Big Ten?
Notre Dame, Clemson, Florida State, Miami.
And Florida State and Miami are out. So he took all the old tradition. Oh.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there will ever be a national champion again that is not in that group right now?
I don't.
I have a few potentials. Like, I think SMU in the era of paying players, now that they're in the ACC, I think they could cycle up to that. I think that's possible. I think we've always talked about North Carolina as a sleeping giant. Like, if you could actually wake the giant.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe, you take out. It's like
if you wake the Arizona State giant, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. One that I kind of popped into my head. That's kind of a left field, might irritate people, but I've said it before, and I kind of agree. But what about Colorado gets it going? And Deion's there for 10 years and really gets it going. Colorado might be a team that I think could reach that potential if he gets these.
Colorado was a team that was in that mix in the Bill McCartney era. So BYU, you've mentioned if the church ever wanted to just buy a national championship, they probably could.
Don't start with me. You know how I get fired up about that. The thing about it though too is that like ever again is such a hard, like, because like you have to save me from this. Like what's true right now is always true forever in my mind, and you have to bring me back from that. And like so, like, forever. Like, is it impossible that like Arizona State or Texas Tech becomes a power in 2041? So, sir, but like when if you're asking a question, like a good faith question about like where college football is and where these programs are right now, and us trying to use the information that we have right now available to us to make an educated guess, the only places that I can go to in a good faith response to that would be teams that are capable of acquiring talent at a certain rate. And those teams are very limited, which right now in the Big 12, I look at SMU, Colorado, and Texas Tech as being in that bucket and no one else. And I don't know who else is in the ACC that can threaten for that. Like who are we missing in the ACC here?
But I will point this out. Like if we'd asked this question in 2004, Clemson would not have been one of the options Adam gave us. And I think we'd probably say, I don't think Clemson is ever going to win a national title again.
That's right. That's right.
So Dabo proved us wrong.
Like he wants an answer from us. So like so we have to.
Well, I've offered a few answers. I think SMU. I actually think Louisville could be in that mix too, in the right circumstances.
You have to use the evidence that you have at your disposal right now in terms of concrete information to try to guide that.
Okay, SMU goes into the ACC and immediately is competitive. We know they're really good at paying players going back decades. Paying players is allowed now. So why can't SMU become that? They have lots of rich boosters. They have lots of passionate rich boosters who like SMU football a lot. Like it's not one of the, because if you look at the ACC, look at some of these schools, some of these schools have very rich alums who don't care about football. SMU has very rich alums who care deeply about football.
I know Rhett Lashley is somebody who I think kind of engages with our show. He comes on quite a bit and I think listens and sees our rankings and stuff. I don't know if he's listening right now, but here's the thing that I hit a snag at. Okay. Until SMU can convince high schoolers that they are an option over A&M in Texas and LSU and Oklahoma.
I can help you here. Until SMU can keep Keelan Russell committed instead of him flipping to Miami.
And to Alabama. And it not be a weird thing. Like until that is an expected thing. Because you do see sometimes.
But I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. And I'll go back to my Clemson example. Until CJ Spiller committed to Clemson, we didn't think Clemson was ever going to get those players again. And then they started doing it.
But they had a history of doing it. So I guess at SMU, you think they have a history of it.
But they didn't have a history of doing it in the previous 15 years.
And but you would say that SMU does have a history of it with the Eric Dickerson years, right?
Exactly. Yes.
I guess I could get on board with it, but like I do believe, and I wrote a huge feature when Sonny Dykes was the head coach at SMU, and I went and visited with him and Preston Stone and all these things. Mm-hmm. And they have the Dallas players stay home at Dallas billboards all over the place. Their uniforms are very Dallas. But I still feel like when Texas gets involved with a Dallas player or Alabama or LSU or A&M, like also too, Oklahoma isn't in the state of Texas, but they recruit Texas like they're here and people view them as here.
I'm not saying it's easy.
No, I know. But like to me, it's like always like, well, okay, well, if you have enough money, you can do anything. But it's like SMU has had a ton of money for a long time, and now it's legal, so maybe that's the difference. But they haven't been able to, even since
that is the difference.
But is SMU like recruiting top 10 classes now? Like it still hasn't.
They're recruiting better classes.
They're recruiting better classes. But we're talking about the national title.
Ari, they were in the American 2 years ago. What do you want from them?
No, I know. Well, but the thing is that if you think money is the cure-all, which and a lot of times it is, I don't know that where they were 2 years ago matters. It's breaking down the.
It does matter. You still have to be in a conference that allows you a chance.
I still think that you have to break down through perception of being a second-rate program in your own state when compared to Texas and Texas A&M, which is
you do. You do, which is not easy. But I do think the way Rhett Lashley's going, if anybody has a chance to do it, it's them.
And I also think, too, that SMU making the playoff last year was a huge, huge boost to that reputation standard. I would have liked to see them compete at a higher level, but if SMU makes it back to the playoff again, then all of a sudden they're a main fixture in that conversation. It becomes less of, it's a G5 team that just moved, and it's a legitimate power conference team with money and great facilities. And by the way, drive around SMU because it's a mile and a half away from my house quite a bit. Beautiful campus, and it's the home of the Rolls Royce. Like, you drive through there, you see some pretty gnarly, I don't know, oil money.
Have you seen the videos, the YouTube videos where they ask, what's your biggest flex? And they did it at an SMU tailgate, and some of the flexes are insane.
What was it? Was it like Shador
It's like,
Sanders?
I have my own helicopter. Like,
no, here's the thing. Like, too earlier in the beginning of the show, when you said you went to Seaside and you saw all the Dallas residents placards on their homes, there's something that a lot of people in the city have that I will never have, and that you will never
lots
have.
of money.
And there's something that it's not. I mean, one day I'll have lots of money. I make money sometimes doing weird stuff. I made $5,000 on Thursday flipping a football card. But the thing that we'll never have are ancestors or people that were in our family 2 or 3 generations ago happened to live on a plot of land that had oil under it. Like when
That's
you start talking about like that sort of thing, like that's the type, like in Dallas specifically, because I grew up in Scottsdale, and Scottsdale's got a ton of stupid money too. But the stupid money in Dallas is like legitimate, like family old through the soil money. Like, that's a type of money that you don't see in South Beach very often. Like that, flashing money that you don't see in Scottsdale very often. You see these people and their parents' were millionaires,
Yep.
So like maybe that'll help. But like, I don't know, like I think SMU belongs on the list of teams that aren't in that category, but like, it's still
I think they're probably the best positioned to join that group. It still may not be anybody. It still may be zero, but I think they're the best positioned.
Yeah. All the teams that we named were teams that are able to get players at a rate that other teams aren't able to. Like, it's like, if you're a Duke fan, you can be excited for the season, but it's like, there's a limitation on what they're bringing in from a talent.
You got the quarterback this year, but it's going to be very hard to create the depth you need.
If you're Wake Forest, if you're Stanford, if you're Virginia Tech, I mean, I don't know, like, they don't recruit the DMV the way that they used to, right? Or the Tidewater area. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I could create a path. Like, North Carolina, to me, had a path of being really, really good when Mac Brown first took over, and then that path exploded
when Butch Davis was there, before Marvin Austin tweeted from the nightclub. Like, that 2010 North Carolina team, had it not been ravaged by NCAA scandal, I think would have been a really competitive team, potentially a national title competitor.
I mean, you could go to the list of ACC teams and come up with their path. I mean, Georgia Tech's path, they're in frickin' Atlanta. Do I need to spell that out for you? Like, I mean, like, the players are there. But it's just more like the concept is just so much harder to like actually make work than coming up with the concept at a lot of places.
Yeah.
Can BC be like Notre Dame light and just recruit every private Catholic school in the country and say, if this is the environment you're looking for, there's one of 2 places in power football that you can find it at, and we're the second one. So go get all of the sloppy seconds that Notre Dame doesn't have room for. Is that a path? I don't know.
It's possibly a path. The problem is, in reality, you're not getting that, because the people who just missed getting into the class at Notre Dame are probably still going somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that's the tricky part. But again, like SMU, fire up the Camaro. Let's get it done. Let's get on this list. I think you got the best shot.
Camaro.
Ari. Yeah, wasn't it a Camaro that they gave to?
Yeah, I know. It used to be a Camaro.
A&M gave the Camaro to Texas to Dickerson, and he drove it to SMU. That's what it was, right?
Okay. Yeah, I know what you meant by Camaro. I know.
Yeah,
isn't that,
or was it a Firebird? I mix up the Camaro and the Firebird all the time.
Firebird, and I think that was like, have you seen the movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High?
Yes, it's the one Forrest Whitaker has.
Yeah, Jefferson.
Yeah, Firebird's a Pontiac, the Camaro's a Chevy.
But that's not the car anymore. It's a Lambo or something, or a Rolls Royce Wraith or something.
Right.
Like, we're not dealing with like because like back in the day, like, was a Camaro in like 1970 just a little bit more expensive than a nice sedan?
Oh, I don't even know if it was that much more expensive. It was a bigger engine. It was a muscle car. But yeah.
But like now it's about money. Now it's about flashiness. Yeah. Now it's about that Lambo SUV you love.
It's not a Lamborghini urologist. You ain't winning a national title giving people Lamborghini urologists. So
I didn't mean to crap on SMU. I feel bad. Like, now people are gonna get mad at me.
You didn't.
Like, I feel like they would be the team on the list. I'm just saying what gives me pause.
You outlined the difficulty
And there's nothing that I
they
think
all
Rhett
face.
Ashley can even do about it. Like he can do the best. It has nothing to do with whether he's a good or bad coach. I think he's a great coach. I love the guy.
But I think if he's an extraordinary coach like Dabo is,
Yeah.
you can change the school's circumstances. And so we'll see. Because I mean, can you argue with anything Rhett's done so far? Like, he's been awesome so far. So we'll see how that goes. But I think of the schools that are not on the list already, they got the best shot to get on the list. Whether they can do it is another question. Speaking of questions, thank you guys for incredible questions today. Thank you for watching this week. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend, and Ari and I will see you again on Monday.